everyone. Can anyone hear me?
I can hear you, Nika. You go ahead.
Okay, so my take home from the previous class was types of wall finishing. We have the flake finishing, the plastered wall, and the marble wall, and the rest of them.
Yeah.
That's one, yeah. And then most people have mentioned them. The next one was about foundation, different types of foundation. So that's my take home from the previous class.
Okay, that's good. I'm glad to note that we learned a lot from last class, and I'll keep encouraging us to read our material and try and always follow up immediately after the class. Just browse through to help you, and then you remember some of these things. And one of the things I always advise students and the classes I take is each time you visit any building, open your eyes. Just open your eyes, and once you see something and something is telling you inside you that there's something wrong here, you are almost like 80% correct that something is wrong. But because our eyes are not trained to see these things, we do not see them. Uh, I'm seeing Lawa's hand up.
Hello, sir.
Oh, let me hear you.
Yeah, good evening, sir. Good evening, my co-student. Nice seeing your face, Oga. I think I'm seeing that handsome face for the first time. So honestly, the lecture was so I can't say so sweet. I don't know. Maybe they only pack the sweet ones and give you. Well, and you always did well delivering the lecture. Honestly, where I work, the one I really enjoyed was this example you made about cosmetic when women or ladies they just rub cosmetics. That is what is really happening in my office. So there is this capillary rising, and they've been facing that for the past 10 years. So I had to come in, tell them, even if we are to work on it, let's remove all this plaster. Probably they now break the block somehow. Then maybe we can just still put something like cement inside. And honestly, they just accepted it. I gave God that good. But another one is, I don't know if that one can come in. This office here, I always notice they, probably moving them here and there. They draw line on the walls. What can we do?
So I didn't get that. Sorry.
Like office here, this normal office here. When
Okay.
yes, rubbing against the wall, there are scratches.
Okay. Normally, sometimes, let me just quickly answer before I go to meetings. Most of us have that problem. That will apply. You either use wood, and normally I use wood anyway, at that level of the wall, about 1.2, between 900 to 1.2 height of the wall, where the backrest of the chair rests most of the time. I do that panel around where the main offices are, and it helps to prevent that from happening. It adds to the aesthetic of the office space, because you could do some panels that looks very nice, colorful, and blends with the furniture. At the end of the day, it comes out very good, and you wouldn't even know that's the purpose of it. It is well done.
Okay. Now I understand. Thank you,
and
sir.
that can. Yes, sir. So today we'll be looking at regulatory requirements and building code. I think the first class I took a little bit to touch the building code. Today we shall be looking at it in a more elaborate format. Let me warn you, today's class is not really on it's more of, how will I put it now? Theoretical, because there are things you just have to know. But some of you would have been working with it and you didn't know you're working with it. Like I mentioned, one of the classes, Nigeria has a building code, but it's not as popular as it should be, but it should be very popular anyway. The presentation outlined, we'll look at the introductions, we'll look at administration, we'll look at the requirements, and we'll look at enforcement, look at technical requirements also. I'll look at building maintenance standards. Majorly the codes. What are codes? Building codes. There are a set of rules that specify the minimum standards for constructed objectives, such as building and non-building structures. It's very important for us to note that building codes are really, really important, especially for areas where you need to do a lot of regulatory activities. If you do not have building codes in areas, in the countries or nations, people just do what they like. They just build without understanding what they build. Building codes are a set of rules that are specified for constructed objectives. There are also the main purposes for actually building code is to protect public health, safety, and general welfare as it relates to construction and occupancy of building and structures. We must always note that that's one of the things that needs to be done when you're required to look at that. Usually applied to the engineering and architectural designing buildings, serves as guidelines for safety inspectors. Every kind of activity or profession has a form of code or the other. Because we're looking at facility, we're looking at building. We'll talk more on building codes and how that works. Building code have been used by governmental units for centuries to ensure that buildings remain safe and sanity. We have different levels of code. We have the national building code, we have the model building code, and we have international building code. National building code is actually developed by the government, and it's actually used and enforced by also the government in a country or in a nation, as it were. The National Building Code is a code of practice or standard that governs the erection of buildings or building operation in a particular nation or in a particular country, as it were. And it's been enforced by the federal government, by the central government. We have the Modern Building Code. Normally is like enforced by the local authorities. There are still codes. This is where the power for regulation, regulating construction of fire safety is vested in the local or subnational authorities. Like in Lagos, now Lagos have modern building code. Lagos has its own code that it uses. So there's a national building code, but Lagos has its own that it enforces around the buildings that they do around Lagos. That's why, apart from the how will I call the fund drive that happens in Lagos State, building codes in Lagos State is also they try to, as much as possible, enforce it because of the building collapse that happens around in different places in Lagos. They've become so very serious with the monitoring of this code to ensure that people abide by the code. Of course, it's been still flouted because of the corrupt nature. However, we are sure that those things will surmount it. But anyway, for us as professionals, we always, from time to time, ensure that we meet up and do the things that we're supposed to do in the required time. International building codes are the codes that they are universally, or rather internationally instituted. This is where the power of regulating construction and fire safety is vested in international institutions to which local or national jurisdictions have signed up to adopt common conventions. Most of the time, the code they use for um, things such as airports, when you are construction an airport, it is not the local code, is actually international code because of the activities that happens in international airports, because you must meet up with the international codes for the airport, the minimum requirements, which are the standards that they make provision for the runway, for airport safety, for aircraft safety. You need to meet up with that. That's why it's very important for you to meet up with that code. And from time to time, they give certifications for such code. They give you certification. Once you pass, they even grade it. There's a green, there is yellow, there is amber, and thereabouts to, and there is red. Once you are red, it means that your airport facility is on danger list, and no international airline will actually go there. So they give those grades. Sometimes they give it either in they give you A plus plus, they give you B, they give you C, just like that, so that you'll be able to understand how the grading goes for such codes. It's very important that you note all this. So in case you find yourself in these facilities that are scattered around, if you're in Lagos and you're managing a facility in Lagos, like for instance, they have a code for sewage treatment, and you have sewage treatment in your facility that you're managing, the effluence that comes out from the treatment plant, if it's not properly treated, Lagos State Ministry of Environment can shut down your site. They can lock up your residence and fine you greatly for breaching that code, because they have the minimum requirement of the effluence you are going to send either into the public drains or dispose it as is required. However, a lot of people do not always meet up with these things. They follow these rules. State has its own fire service. There's federal fire service, and normally federal fire service will come certify your building okay. Lagos State will still come and certify your building okay, because of the fact that that building is located in Lagos State, and when there is a fire incident in your building, you put the auxiliary buildings around you at risk. So the Lagos State will always, as much as possible, as even if federal federal fire service has given you accreditation or giving you a certification, Lagos will also want to do theirs, because they feel that they are always the first respondent once there's an accident or there's an incident of fire in your building. So they feel that responsibility, and they try as much as possible to always be responsible to handle that. Building regulation parts. There are different aspects in a building that is being regulated, and sometimes it depends on how the regulatory authority wants to do that. And for the nation, or for wise ones like in Lagos State, or wherever state you find yourself, or local government like the island local government, Lagos Island local government, and the activity of construction and building in Lagos Island is totally different. The requirement for there is totally different from the requirement of building in Ikoyi. It's totally different from the requirement of building in Mushi. It's totally different from the requirement of building somewhere like Kudu. Somewhere different from the requirement of building somewhere in Badagry. So these things, you must understand it and know how to manage them as it goes. One of the first things you must know is structure. Structural stability of buildings is one of the minimal requirements that is normally considered in the code. Because of building collapse, you always have that. It's part of the code. They give you, they actually, if you go to the building code, I think the National Building Code, I should have it. I'll check if I have it. I should have it. It should be like 100 and something page document. I think that was done. It was last reviewed 2006. I think August 2006. I should have that code. Maybe if I can, I'll just search for it and probably share it with us to just look at it. It's a very bulky document. I know it's being reviewed. I think that code is also being reviewed now. I'm not too sure. I think it's being reviewed now for it to become more active. But which Lagos State actually does some extract from for them to use, especially for the structural stability of the building. They have the minimal requirement for the concrete that you're going to do, that you use for the building, the reinforcement work that you're going to use for the building. Normally, there's a minimum required. In fact, right now in construction in Lagos State, Lagos State Building Control Agency last back, you have become very active. They visit every construction site, and even when you want to do renovations, they still come and check. They will insist that you do a non-destructive test, structural test for your building that you want to renovate, to ensure that whatever you are doing to that building, you do not disturb the building such that it will not cause a building collapse eventually. It's very important for you to know this, so that if peradventure you are working somewhere and company or the facility you manage, they want to do some renovation work, and somehow you are called to come and look at it. One, you need to advise management on the steps to take to be able to do proper renovation work for the buildings. One of the first things you must take. I think somebody asked a question in our last class how we go about that. I think I mentioned that one of the first things you must do is the non-destructive structural test, which is called the NDT. It helps to ascertain the building as it is, how structural stable that building is. The next thing you probably look at is the area of coverage, including design of foundation, walls, floors, and the roof components. That's all the code takes care of in terms of structure. The next one that the code also looks at the regulatory services. It looks at the fire safety of the building, requirements for providing earlier warning to a developing fire, the satisfactory escape route, prevention preventing fire spread both within and to other buildings, providing good access and firefighting facility for the fire services. Only once, especially for commercial buildings, office buildings, it is very important. One of the things that the code states, which they actually follow up, they do that regularly. Even a construction site, they come to ensure that you do what you're supposed to do. One of the things they will make sure you do is that you provide adequate warning signs the fire is developing. So the minimum requirement is you should have smoke detectors in the different office spaces. So whether you are in an office, you're working in an office or in a residential building, you must have smoke detectors. Smoke detectors are intelligent gadgets that are placed in the building, such that once there's any form of fire, it senses the smoke that comes from the fire. Immediately senses that smoke, it triggers an alarm that makes that alerts everybody in the building or in the facility, and then you provide rules for the next one is satisfactory escape routes. Immediately that alarm is sounded, you need to ensure that the routes are cleared. I think when we're doing space management or thereabout, I mentioned fire escape for emergency escape for buildings. That must always be clear. You must always be so in case you can easily go through those routes, and those routes must be properly routed, must be properly eliminated, must be properly annotated, so that once you come out from every space, you know the fire and know how to escape. Preventing of spread for both within and other buildings. You must be able to ensure that if there's fire in any space in the building, you should be able to curtail the fire within that space that it is, either in a room. Once the fire starts in that room, you normally designs and all that are done for the building such that the fire can be curtailed within that room, so it doesn't spread to other rooms and also does not spread to other buildings or even other floors. It's very important that that is noted. And providing of good access for firefighting facilities for the firefighting service. Normally, you are supposed to make in buildings. You do what we call the wet line and the wet dry risers and the dry risers. The dry riser is mainly for the fire service in buildings. Normally, once you have, especially in commercial buildings, you have a point that is always located somewhere around the gate, the entrance, or somewhere at the entrance where the fire service truck can get in case your water provision for your firefighting in building is down or is running out. They just connect their pipe into that facility and pump water through, and it activates the firefighting gadget within your building system or the fire hydrant system that is normally made provision for in such buildings. The next one you look at is the site preparation and resistance to contamination and moist. Resistance to contamination and moist. You need to look at the recommendations for making sure that your property remains free from damp prevention, condensation, contamination that may be around, that may be in the ground or and sorry, in the ground and watertight. There are sometimes that you must also ensure that when you build or maybe factories where they do a lot of chemical work. The factories also are checked to ensure that whatever they are discharging into the public drain or into the ground, the contaminant is not that bad to affect people around. And that's why sometimes government will always advise that we actually do not drink water that you provide yourself except it's properly treated or made portable. And once it's treated, it needs to always go through the routine of the water to ensure that you have the water potable enough. Because it's very possible you may be living in an environment so much contaminant in the underground water, and once you start drinking that water, it becomes a hazard to your health, and that becomes a problem. Toxic guidance on the prevention of toxic substance permeating into the building when a certain installation into the cavity of the wall. There are sometimes that all these substances that comes from chemicals, sorry, from factories, especially from factories that use a lot of chemicals. If they are not regulated, they just discharge their waste products, which are also very harmful and toxic to human health. And they just do that, and it goes into probably residential building or a office building, and you just in there and you just be consuming water from there, and people just start falling sick for no just cause, not knowing that it's due to toxins that have been released into the buildings from another building. Resistance to the passage of sound, as far as sound insulation requirements aimed at reducing the requirements, reducing sound transference between buildings, between flats, between rooms, between communal areas, like things like halls, event centers, church, mosques. They are being regulated so that the amount of noise that comes from this area, these buildings, do not disturb residents. It's just that unfortunately, uh, this is for the Orthodox churches, for the Anglican churches, the Catholic churches, the few evangelical churches. Once they are building their structures, they take this into consideration, such that whatever music they play from their building, it doesn't really disturb the environment where they are located, not that much. But some new generation churches that come up and put on speakers outside, disturbing the whole environment, is actually regulated. I know that in Lagos State they have very strict such things, which if you as an individual, whatever facility you are managing, if you are managing a church, for instance, you must ensure that the required decibel is not exceeded. That is sound insulation for the building is properly done, so I don't have sound going out and disturbing the environment. And this part provides for adequate level of ventilation to buildings, prevention of condensation from the roof void. Most buildings, especially once you are designing a building. I'm an architect, so I do a lot of these designs, and then when we go for building approvals, they'll tell you that they at least in around you must ensure that every room it has cross ventilation. That means you should provide adequate fenestration and adequate windows for each room to be able to allow movement of air. And if you don't do that, normally they will not give you approval for such building, except for townhouses. But even at townhouses, you must always make provision for adequate provision for artificial ventilation by way of air conditioning system and air circulation equipment that will be able to move hot air out and ensure there is a good change of air. And there's something that is no longer as popular as it should be these days. I don't know if if any of you have used to notice the old houses. If you look at old houses, once they are built, you'll see that on the gable over the roof, there's always this small fancy blocks that they put that has holes that you just see in front of the house. It's as if it's like a design, but it's not a design. Just a fancy block that has this hollow. It's supposed to, that thing that you see in that place is supposed to be for exchange of air to ventilate the roof to avoid condensation. Part of the problem that happens, especially in most buildings, where you have, sometimes you may have, especially when you have suspended ceilings in your building, sometimes the condensation, the wetness that you see on this ceiling is not due to any form of leakage. It's also due to thermal change. If the air condition is working so well and then there's no way for it to properly vent out, sometimes by the time there's a change in temperature in that room, the condensation will begin to show on the ceiling. The ceiling begins to sweat, and after a while it begins to dampen and it changes color, and you now think there's leakage. Meanwhile, there's no leakage because there's no proper venting, there's no air vent that does that air exchange in that room, in that space. That's why that happens. So you must always ensure that you have proper ventilation for also your roof, because your roof, the roof cavity in itself in a building also carries so much heat. After the sun hits the roof, it needs to have a way to vent out. If it doesn't have that way to vent out, you are cooling your room from inside with air conditioning, it's chilling very well, the roof is hot. By the time there's that change in exchange of air, at a particular point, there will be sweating, which is caused by condensate, and that condensate may begin to cause problems for your building. G, the hygiene of the building. You must ensure that your building is hygienic, provide good sanity, conveniences, and wash facilities for whatever building you are that is being worked on, and also drainage and waste disposal. The drainage, water drainage from there, sewage drainage itself, you must take care of that. Waste disposal, proper waste disposal to ensure that every building, no matter how it is, when that is inhabited by human beings, must always generate waste, either by way of sewage or probably food waste, domestic waste, or whatever you call it, or office waste due to papers and all that. There must be waste anyway. It must be generated. So you must always plan to have proper waste and disposal. Combustion appliances and fuel storage. That sometimes you may need to store fuel. And a lot of us are very good at this because we now use gas cylinders for cooking in our homes. We don't properly store them. And it's only God that really is helping us in this country anyway. Because this country, everybody in their different homes have one bomb on the other that they are setting. If there's something happens, that's when you see things exploding everywhere. But as it were, those are things that you are supposed to probably take care of and ensure you comply with the required law that says you must probably store them properly and put them in a safe area. And for where you have your kitchens, you are supposed to have fire extinguishers in your kitchen. I know that a lot of us don't have it, but it's very important for you to have fire extinguishers in your kitchen because it is prone to always having fire. It's something that we must look at. Protection for fall, collision, and impact. Concerning this concerns area like staircase design, where you need to make provision for the headrooms, the handrail, and for balconies. You need to make provision for balustrade, proper balustrade, to ensure that people don't they don't follow balconies when they stay on staircase, so they don't slide when they are coming down the staircase. And edges of the staircase must be rough enough to have enough grip on your footwear, so that as you go through the staircase, you don't slip. You have the grip that ensure that that happens. And also in general areas, especially in general lobbies, it's always advisable not to use if you are using tiles. It's advisable for you not to use gloss tiles. It's better you use matte tiles or non-slip tiles, especially for ladies that use some of all these designer shoes that makes a lot of noise everywhere. They are going, you're hearing ka, they're doing shakara. But if the ground is very polished and very slippery, sometimes if there's just light water on the ground, the ladies try to themselves close to the ground. I won't say they fall, but sometimes they just get themselves close to the ground and they stand up very embarrassed, you know. But it's always good to use non-slip tiles so that those things, you prevent that from happening. That's why you don't have casualties also coming from that. Conservation of fuel and power. Well, we are looking at very energy saving building. I think there's a course that has to do with sustainability in these models. Probably you do that. You know how to read, how to you are looking towards going towards renewable energy, saving energy, being energy efficient, and there are provisions for that to ensure that you don't just waste energy. Um, Unfortunately, we are not there yet in this country where you pay adequately for what you consume in terms of power, provision of power. If you actually consider your if you consider your fuel consumption for powering your house, you will know that whatever you are paying for NEPA or whatever you call it, PHCN, Ikeja Electric, Eco Distribution, Ibadan Distribution, whatever wherever you are, you know that what you are paying is actually peanuts. You discover that if you are to power your house the way you power it with NEPA, and you are to buy the requisite generator and the foiling of that generator, you discover that you may spend up to if if the calculation is very right for a 2 bedroom or 3 bedroom flat, you should spend average of 10,000 naira every day to foil your generators to power it the way NEPA powers your house. And I'm not sure if anybody's paying 100 and something thousand, 130,000 naira or 300,000 bill for your 3 bedroom. If they give you a bill of 20,000, you start shouting hell from devil up and heaven to hell because the thing is too high. Not that I'm saying that you should be paying more, but I'm just letting you know that um, energy consumption, you need to be able to manage it so that if you have prepaid meter, you'll be able to know that you put off your light before you leave the house. But if you don't have prepaid meter, if you're situated, sometimes you forget your lights on, you go out for 8 hours there and come back and not do that. Then access and others tow and use of building. You need to make proper provision for access. You see, for normal residential, you may not have that kind of problem, but for auditoriums, for theaters, for churches, for mosques, there's you need to one of the things we do if you are doing when we are doing our design, we make provision for good access in case there is fire, so that the doors and the provision for access or exit is very very defined. The doors, that's why if you go to most auditoriums, you see that they have wide doors. It's not just because they want to put wide doors, it's because if there's an incident, so that people can rush out on time and leave the facility on time. And the doors need to be provisioned, it needs to be proportioned to the amount of people in the hall. The more people you have inside the hall that you are using, the more provision you need to make for exit, more exit points and wider exit points to ensure that you don't have stampede in building. Glazing safety in relation to impact and opening and cleaning. Of course, you know that for safety glass, you need to understand that, especially for partitions in offices where you have glass. Glass is quite dangerous if it's not handled properly. Most of the time, the regulation is that you use tempered glass or you call it safety glass anyway in partition, office partition, to ensure that you don't have casualties in case there's a break. It doesn't injure become it doesn't it doesn't cause big serious casualties to the occupants or the people that go through the building. Finally, we advise that you temper the glasses that you use for partition, or if you cannot temper the glass, you laminate the glass so that when there is any impact, it doesn't break to a point where somebody gets extremely injured. Electrical safety, you must ensure that you make good provision for electrical safety for the electrical appliances. That this includes not allowing naked wires when you're doing electrical installations, especially in common areas, in gardens. You ensure that all the electrical connections, the wiring are properly insulated and properly protected. And all these ones that a lot of electricians they normally do, they just join wire, tie it together, and use tape to tape it. It's not always advisable. It's good for them to use their connectors that they use for these things to make it neat and more safe. And where they need to tape, they need to tape it adequately and properly so that you don't have issues of fire or issues of electrification in areas. Professional requirements. Professional requirements. This is just talking about the professionals that are required for different inspectors and buildings. For the requirements for to become an inspector or a plan examiner. One, you must be of age. You must be minimum of 18 years of age. You must be of good character. You must have 5-year combined experience in field of construction or any related inspection or plan review. You must also be able to, you must have a combination of post-secondary school education in related field in construction related field. That's for an inspector. Normally, the bar is higher now. You need to, if you are going to be an inspector in the building industry, you either we have to read building or civil engineering, mechanical engineering, electrical engineering, architecture, or infrastructure engineering, just something related to engineering, so that you by the time you go to the building, if you read accounting and you go to building construction and they're talking about the mixed ratio of concrete, you'll be looking like a fool, not understanding what's going on there. And if you want to go and regulate something, you don't know what it's about. How do you regulate something like that? A requirement to become a building code administrator, you must have at least 18 years. You must be at least 18 years of age, and you must be of good character. You must have 10 years combined experience as an architect, engineer, or planning exams, uh, with at least 5 years of such experience in supervisory position, a combination of post secondary education in the field of construction or related field. And that's a little bit of the requirement of what is required uh, to provide a purpose for building code. Sometimes you wonder why the building codes. The purpose for building code, like I've mentioned in the introduction, is for safety reasons, for health reasons, and for general welfare. Is to provide minimal standards required for safety, for health, and for general welfare, that make provision for conveniences and for catering, to ensure that whatever facility you find yourself, you can easily enjoy your stay while you're there. To also provide certain minimum standards, provision, and requirement for safety and stability, and stable design, method of construction methodology is very important, and use of materials in the building or for the structures. The use of material is very important. The method of construction is also very important. Um, in as much as you may know that, oh, any building you use sand and you use blocks, you use sand and cement, the quality of blocks that you use for the building matters, so the building does not collapse, especially if you are running load bearing walls. The blocks you are using must be of good standard, to ensure that you don't throw the people that are going to live in that building into danger. And also the mix of the concrete, the mixed ratio of the concrete, the granite, the cement, the sand that you use. And another important factor that is also considered for construction is the water that is required. The water for construction, by standard or regulation, it must be potable. The water must be as good as the water you drink. Very important to know that the water must be void of iron, because if that water has iron and you're using it for reinforced concrete, after a while the water will react with the reinforcement and now begin to cause it to corrode or to rust inside the concrete. And once that happens, you see this column that is on this side, that's on this picture, that is looking like it's collapsed. That's part of what can also happen uh, when you use the wrong water. It will make that building, once it begins to rot, you discover that it begins to swell. I don't know if you have taken note in some buildings, old houses really, that you see that, especially for buildings, for the slab of the building, you see that after a while the plaster or the layer of the cement will fall off, and then you'll be seeing the reinforcement that is already rusted, and then you wonder, you say this thing. Part of what causes that thing is the water quality that they use for casting the concrete, because after a while the water reacts with the reinforcement and causes it to rust, and once it rusts, it will swell and then it will burst off the concrete around it, causing it to lose its strength, as it were. Um, Scope of building code. Scope of building code. Um, Standard for one, structure, placement, and size. The standard for the structure, for placement, and the size of the reinforcement or the different materials that is supposed to be. The usage, uh, the wall assembly, the egress rule, ingress and egress. Egress is escape rule, the fire exit, the fire emergency, the run out, the foundation and the roof structures. It's very important to note that um, those are the things that are covered by the general standard, and rules guiding uh, regarding parking and traffic impact. Normally, once you are building um, a building that has more than 4 dwelling units, you must make a what we call a you do environmental impact assessment for your building, and you do your traffic impact assessment. The fire code rules, you must maintain that. Requirements for earthquake, we don't have so much of earthquake around there, so we don't so much fear for that. But we have issues of flood, so you flood requirement for and hurricane resistance. You must ensure that your building has some safety features when there is flood, so that the building is not endangered. Requirement for specific safety uses, and there's some buildings that require that, especially for oil and gas. They do all that to ensure that their buildings are safe, have the minimum requirement to ensure that they don't have issues within their building premises. Energy provision and consumption, we know that provision of energy, how it comes in, how the PHN comes, how power comes in, how you locate your generators and ensure that the noise from the generator is not a hazard, and the diesel and the chemicals or the oils used for the generator is not a hazard. You also look at how that plays out. Allow installation methodology, check the installation methodology specification on components, minimum and maximum room and exit sizes and the locations. Normally, there's what we call setbacks in building. Normally, the minimum setbacks for residential buildings on the bordering fence is normally 3 meters, both at the back and the left and right side. For the front is 6 meters. But for high-rise building, for 3 floors and to like 6 floors, the minimum requirement is 4.5. As it goes up, it becomes 9 meters. 4.5 on the sides and the back of the fence, and front 9 meters. And then when it goes higher than that, it becomes 9 meters on the sides and 18 meters in front. Those are just the basic setbacks that I think in Lagos State that guys, even in general, is actually a national code. Qualification of individuals or corporations that are doing the job, the qualifications of the individuals that are manning or constructing the job is very important. For high structures, anti-collision markers for the beneath of aircraft. For skyscrapers, there's you will notice for high skyscrapers, for high buildings, you will always see. Sometimes you may not notice it. For those of you that go to Victoria Island a lot, you notice that in some buildings you just be seeing a light that is beaming, just shining. It beams. It just comes up and goes up, comes up. That light goes is like that constantly, day and night. It's what sometimes you see it on this GSM mass. It's always there on top. Is because of aircraft. It's called anti-aircraft light. So once you are there, once you are flying an aircraft, once you see that light, you know that there's an obstruction there, so you don't fly lower than where you are supposed to be. Building code administration. National Building Code of Nigeria 2006. Okay, I didn't even know it's actually 2006, August 2006 commencement. It commenced at 2006. The National Council of Housing and Development deemed it necessary to initiate the building process the of evolving a national building code with a view to provide a lasting solution to the hazardous trend in the building construction industry. I think this code was signed in, I think either by who was this thing then, or was it is it Aregbe Shola or the governor of Ekiti State now? I think when he was minister of housing and urban development, that was when that code was signed in 2006. The aim of Fire Me, yes, I think it's Fire Me. I'm not too sure. I think it's Fire Me that did that. If I check, I think I should be able to exactly. Is the one that was there. It was the honorable minister at that time. I'll just see something. Just a second. I just want to be sure so that you guys can always remember that. Should have been the minister of house at that time. National Building Code was on August 2006. No, it wasn't Fire Me, it was Dr. Mimiko. Mimiko. Ushago Mimiko. It was the one that was honorary minister of housing and development.
Okay.
I think it was Nico that was there. If I'm very sure, I think it's Nico. This is to set minimum standards on building and building pre-design and design, of course, construction and post-construction stages, with a view to ensuring quality, safety, and proficiency in the building industry. Objective of the code is to enable professionals in the building industry to produce the most appropriate code suited for our environment, for subsequent use and application. Every environment has its own requirements, and the way it pans out, the way building materials react to it, is very natural. We cannot be kind what is happening in Britain and bring to Nigeria. That sometimes that the British code doesn't work here, and it was due to that we discovered that the quality of cables that comes out from Nigeria cable industry is at top notch. In fact, in the world, Nigeria copper cables are the best everywhere in the world because of its consistency and his ability to be able to sustain and take more current than usual. I don't know how they were able to maintain that over the years, but it's still like that. Building scope, the scope of building code applies to and control all matters concerning design and specification. The design by the architects, by the engineers, and the specifications that come and therewith that the QS is also used for costing, construction, and alteration work. That's the code covers that. Addition to moving, the demolition, and location for repair and use of any building or structure for existing or proposed building works with the Federal Republic of Nigeria. And that's where the building code actually covers. And then um, requirements and enforcement, pre-design stage. I think at this stage, I'll probably say we'll take a break, or you want us to continue. Okay, let's continue, and then when we get to the next point, go for the break. Um, pre-design stage, the phase of analysis that occurs that after some form of funds is available and before design begins. During the pre-design stage, studies are done to analyze spaces, requirements, and issues, the constraints and the opportunities of the proposed site, the cost vis-a-vis the budgets that you probably have. During the pre-design stage phase may include site analysis, programming, construction cost analysis, and value engineering. Now, um, this really happens, but a lot of people um, do not take this into consideration when we're doing project management. This forms part of the planning part of project management. You must ensure that this is properly done. That's when all the decisions is taken at the project initiation. That's where all the decision is taken design stage, where the project is battered. You look at the high level costings, high level budget for the project, plus or minus 25%, and check if your cost, if you'll be able to muster or get enough money to be able to run the project, and look at your cash inflow or your cash inflow, it comes, and your cost cycle to see if you'll be able to sustain the project as it runs. That's where all those decisions are taken. You look at the design concept, vis-a-vis the cost, the construction methodology, the value engineering, you can maintain the building. Preliminary designs, major emphasis is upon civil, mechanical, and architectural design. The architectural design is normally done first. After the architectural design is done, the civil engineer takes it over, and after the civil engineer takes it, the electrical and mechanical guys takes it over and also design their parts. Once that is done, it begins to bring the building to life, and then the quantity surveyor takes those drawings and begin to give costings to whatever designs have been done by the architect. The designs of all the mechanical processes are done. The architectural concerns, if required, are developed, and the structural systems are identified. All the requirements, all the required site investigations are made before completing this step. Normally, during the design stage, normally there's what we call site investigation. The architect will first of all do the high level investigation by going to inspecting the site and do all the topographical work of the site, look at the nature of the soil and all the the facilities around the site, to look at how it will interact with nature and how the building will interact with the other buildings around there. After the architect has done that, the engineer also goes there to do their soil test to look at, oh, this soil, will it be able to carry the kind of structure that you want to put there? If it's not going to do that, what is the advice you're going to give? The structural engineer will look at it and say, oh, the foundation type that will come on top of this building, that will come for this building that you have designed, may either be a raft foundation, a strip foundation, or probably a combination of pad and strip, or pad and raft, or strip foundation, or combination of pile and raft. Just to ensure it's after the soil test is done that the load bearing capacity of the soil and how much that soil can take, or a sufficient all the a sufficient number of drawings are then prepared to the design concept. The number of drawings required is strictly dependent upon the size and the complexity of the project. The drawings that are developed for any project, depending on the size and complexity of the project. I remember doing an estate somewhere. I remember designing a particular hostel for Bowen University. When we did the work there, the drawings were up to the sheets were up to almost 150 sheets of architectural drawings alone, not even structural drawings, architectural drawings. It was a lot. It was a lot of drawings because it required a lot of details. Final design, the detailed architectural and engineering drawings, that is the blueprint of all physical components of the project, is produced. In some complex projects, a final design report is written to in addition to the drawings that are produced, the blueprint. The final design report, the report actually is supposed to explain the design, especially in a very complex project where you have different parts, which will pull the different drawings together, label it, and ensure that anybody that is going through the design understand what's going on with all the barrage of drawings that is there. The all the design problems, virtually all the design problems must have been resolved before the end of the final design stage. Sufficient details must be provided by the drawings and the report to allow reasonable estimate of the construction cost, the operating cost, and the construction schedule. The construction cost is normally done by the quantity surveyors. They will look at the drawings, the detailed drawings that have been produced, and give adequate costing for it. And then not just that, after the costing have been done, there is projection that will be done also for those buildings to say, oh, after this building is though, it will cost so and so to maintain the building, the running of the building, and know how the maintenance should go. And not also that, we also look at the more detailed the drawings are, it will be able to give you the construction schedule, the program of work, how long it will take to construct the building, and not just making things come out of just guesstimate. All revisions to construction materials, the machineries and the equipment specification are made under the schedule. Cost estimates and specific specifications are contained in the final design report. Construction stage. Construction stage commences after the finalization of the design and after the construction design has been done. Normally, once construction is about to happen, uh, all the consultants, the architects, the engineers issue what a drawing we call issue for construction drawings. All the drawings that would have been happening before that time, maybe planning approval drawing, provisional drawing for discussion drawing for sign off. But by the time construction is supposed to start, they will issue a drawing and stamp that drawing issue for construction and date it, because it's only on that drawing that you can use as authorization for construction work wherever you find yourself implementing the construction. In a traditional model, the appointment of a contractor to undertake the construction of the facility is normally done. Normally, after the drawings is completed, the bill of quantity is done. Those bill of quantity is sent out to prepare a tender document. The tender document is sent out to prospective contractors to bid for the contract. Once they are bidded, they will do a contract negotiation meeting, do the tender analysis, and then decisions will be taken. Once the adequate decisions are taken, afterwards that happens, the preferred contractor is selected when the bid is won, and then the drawings will be officially issued to the contractor to carry out the facility. It encompasses all the works to be done on site. The construction covers all the works required to deliver the final project. The contractor is responsible for undertaking all the works that will be done. Either is the major contractor or the subcontractors. They are also supposed to provide the materials and labor and the plant and equipment required to carry out the project. And because they're going to be paid for it anyway, control the subsequent and coordination of all the work, the sequence and the coordination of all the works that needs to be done, responsible for coordinating with works and other parties. The works means the regulatory authorities as they come, they do that. Post-construction stages involves adjustment, optimization, and modification of the building systems to meet specified requirements. The objective is to maintain building performance through the useful life cycle of the facility. Post-construction, after the building has been constructed, it needs to be operated. And once that operation is going on, sometimes you make adjustments, you optimize the building, ensure that it's being used. If modification is required based on specification, those modifications are done and ensure that things are done the way it should be done. Deferred liability period. The deferred liability period is normally a set of time after construction is done, after construction has been completed, during which a contractor has the right to return to site to remedy any defects that are there. The deferred liability period normally lasts between 6 to 12 months, depending on what the contract agreement says. Deferred liability period will only arise if they are included in the contract. It's very important to note that deferred liability must be included in the contract. And during that deferred liability period, there is a particular amount that is held back by the client, which is normally called retention. It's a 5% retention that is held for the period of 6 to 12 months, depending on what the agreement, the contract says. And immediately that period has expired, the client is expected to pay the contractor that money to show, okay, that, okay, the building you have built for us is okay, we don't have any issues with it. And even the small issues you have, you have come to correct it at your own cost, not at the contract cost, because of it's still under warranty or under deferred liability period. I think we should stop here and take a short break, and then we'll return uh, to continue the class. I hope that's okay with everybody. Are we okay taking a break now, or should continue?
Yeah, it's okay, sir. Let's take a break, sir.
Okay, we'll take it for another 10 minutes. So we should be returning in 5. Unless this is 5:30, 5:40, we'll be returning to class.
Right. Okay.
Yeah, thank you. for it to carry out remedial works itself than to pay the cost of another contracted hire by the employer. Sometimes the limited liability is there are provisions that are made for for that money, the 5% I talked about retention. That money can be used to carry out remedial works where there are defects by the client. But it's always easier and cheaper for the contractor to carry it out themselves and not pay somebody else. The client employs somebody else and pay that amount, it will be too expensive for the client. From the client perspective, it will not need to hire an alternative contractor, it will not need to hire an alternative to carry out works or to carry out the work itself and we claim the cost. That's for different liability period to ensure that the contractors do what they're supposed to do. Building design classification. Now, there are different classifications as it relates building design, and these classifications are also entrained into the building code. In the building code, national building code, the classifications are there. So that's the same classifications that we have. Group A, we have assembly building. Assembly building. Um, this includes auditoriums, amusement parks, entertainment center, recreational centers, churches, and the likes. These are buildings without any. Sorry, you are talking about not churches really. They are buildings without an auditorium in which persons assemble for amusement, like stadiums, um, open air recreational park, pavilions, open amphitheaters or colosseums. They're just entertainment centers, auditoriums. Um, B, business use and professional uses. All buildings and structure used to transact transaction of business and render professional service. That's office buildings, like banks, uh, mix, office blocks, and so on. And you have the educational uses. That's talking about educational buildings anyway. Schools, classrooms used for business and vocational training. You have the factories, and structures in which occupants are engaged in performing. Where occupants are engaged in performing work, labor, fabrication, and so on. E, high hazard building. All building structures used for manufacturing process, generation or storage of corrosive toxins, chemicals, flammable materials, and the marketal buildings and uses. All buildings and structure used for display and sales purposes, like shopping malls, as it were, showrooms. Those are also classified buildings. Uh, Group H, residential uses, all form of residential buildings for accommodation. Group I, storages, warehouses, for storage of goods and all the warehouses and merchandise. J, mixed use and occupancy, when a building is occupied by two or more uses, such as residential and offices, something like that. Mixed use. We have the group K, doubtful use classification, when the building or structure is purposed for a use not specifically provided in this code. Any kind of building that don't have any pairing with what's provided in the code. Group K. Then Group L, utility and miscellaneous buildings and structures of an ancestral character and industrial structures. Structures that are just there that can be used for anything. It can just be a tent that you can use for both an event center or for a church service or something, but it's not exactly a building. It's just something that people can use for anything that they wish to use. These are the several classifications for buildings and building classifications. Type 1 construction. Now, there are different types and different looks that you have to look at in terms of construction, methodology, and the use of the building, the facility, the walls, the partitions, and other things that are, they're just like difference in some of these things. Just one or two things that are different in the different construction classifications for the different buildings. Just not too much. They're about the same thing, but the minimal standard is what we are looking at. Type 1, construction, building and structures in which the walls, partitions, structural elements, floors, ceilings, roofs, and the exits are constructed and protected with approved non-combustible materials. That all the part of the buildings are constructed by non-combustible materials. Please take note of the different things I've mentioned. The elements of the building, the walls, the partition, structural elements, floors. Structural elements refers to column, beams, floors, the ceiling, the roof, and the exits. Then type 2, buildings and structure in which the walls, the partition, structural element, floors, ceiling, roof, and exits are constructed of approved non-combustible materials. Third, buildings and structure in which the external fire and parting walls are constructed of masonry or other approved non-combustible materials of the required fire resistance rating, in which the ratings are taken into consideration. 4, building and structures in which the exterior walls, that's the exterior walls, are of non-combustible materials having a fire resistance rating. 5, the building and construction building structure in which the external walls, load-bearing walls, partition walls, floors, and roof are constructed in any material permitted by this code, whether they are combustible materials or non-combustible materials. Any materials are used for such building, for the construction of such buildings. Energy efficiency in the building code. According to the IEA statistics for energy balance for 2024 to 2025, 2007 edition, the total final energy use accounts for 7,200 and ohms. All these are electrical jargons and all that I just need to just know. Well, in which at the end of the day, which is almost 40% of the final energy consumption in the world. That is, the residential and commercial sectors account for this respect, this 1,000 whatever, which megatons oil equivalent, which is responsible for about 40% of the consumption of energy. Now, the energy efficiency in building code is the improvement of building efficiency at planning stage is relatively simple. Improvements after their initial construction are much more difficult. Now, one of the things that this code is saying is that during the planning stage of any building, it is very important for you to ensure that the consumption, the energy consumption is lower. you plan it into the building such that at the time the building is being constructed, it's easily done. Like, okay, you are constructing a building now, and you have discovered, oh, this building, all the lights I want to use in this building, let's use all LED lights of required ratings in terms of the luminous intensity, the lumens that's required for each space, which is normally between 400 lumens for each space, depending on the number of lights that you use and what. But if you use a good LED light, probably of a let's say 50 watts. If you use halogen will be giving you like 200 watts. So you save energy by using a 50 watts bulb or 50 watts energy light as compared to when you're using a 200 watts halogen light. They'll give you the same intensity of lighting and the same lumens in terms of general ambience of the space. Now, the planning, one during planning stage, if you do that, it's easier for you to it's such that the bills and everything that will be generated at the planning stage will make that provision so that even the wiring and everything and the provision of the lights will only be factored into the building cost. But when the building has been constructed and commissioned already, to now start changing all the LED light, all the halogen light to LED light will become so much difficult. That's what I was trying to say. So it's always better to plan ahead. Decision made during the building project phase determines consumption over much of a building lifetime. The decisions are made, like I said earlier, that happens at the time of the plan and the implementation of the building. We determine how the building the consumption of energy for the building. Recently, I worked on a building for a particular company, and when it was designed at the initial before we took over for the construction of the building, the electrical consultant designed for the use of two number 500 kVA generators. And having done that kind of design for a particular building before and implemented a building standing somewhere in Awolowo Road, we discovered that this building and the mass and the usage of energy will not, even that 500 kV too much for the building to become redundant. And even at that, you will spend so much money foiling that generator, and you will never optimize the use of that generator. It was a lot of argument at the time for us to note, and eventually the client succumbed because we had to drop the load consumption from that 500 kVA generator, which is the equivalent of 1,000 or sorry, the equivalent of 750 kVA generator, to 350 kVA generator, making it three different generators using a synchronization panel. Having a 150 kVA generator with two 100 kVA generators synchronized the synchronization panel. So at the beginning, at the start of the day, when the building comes up and the generator comes on, it starts off with 150 kVA. As the load builds up, another 100 kVA picks up and joins it to become 250 kVA. As the load also further picks up, the other 100 kVA picks up to join up with the 250 kVA to make it 300 kVA, and that will be enough to supply the building, and it will be cheaper to run those generators, and you'll be looking at having generator smart at all times, having a redundancy of at least one generator that can always service the building at every time, at every point in time. Some measures to improve efficiency possible only during the construction stage of the project, not majorly during the refurbishment stage. Improvement will be very costly, cost effective when implemented during the construction stage, and can be expensive when done later. The increased interest will spoil the price for refurbishment. I've talked about all that. The requirement for energy efficiency by refurbishment are therefore an important issue which should be included in code, which is normally it has already been taken care of renovations, especially in the local areas, places like Lagos, so that is being done. Building material standard. What is building material standard? Minimum standard for design, construction, and alteration to virtually every building. The development developed by the government, professional bodies, etc., contains a list of requirements that are designed to ensure minimum standard for healthy and safety welfare. Purposes for building standards. One, to achieve minimum standard for the building work, to apply to most types of building, including domestic, commercial, industrial building, especially relating to the technical aspects of the construction, set of standards for the design and construction for the design and construction industry. The objective of building standards, one, to remark the with to remake the to remake with amendments the regulations which control the design, construction, and use of the building and place of public entertainment, to prescribe standards for the construction and demolition of buildings, to prescribe standards for safety for places of public entertainment, to regulate matters relating to the use and maintenance of buildings and places of entertainment, to prescribe requirements for the design and siting of single dwelling and associated building, prescribe standards and matters relating to maintenance of fire safety and safety measures, to prescribe requirements for swimming pool, spa, and spa safety, etc. In building regulation, approval the same as obtaining building approval. In building regulation approval, the same as obtaining planning permits. Normally, it depends on how the sectors are really regulated. But in Lagos State, which I can speak maybe another few states I've worked on in the south and southeast, southwest that I worked on, and also just a bit up in Abuja. The building regulation approval does not mean the same as obtaining building permits for your work. Normally, the building regulation approval, once your building has been in Lagos State, they have two units that work on this. You have the planning permit office, and the last part, the building control agency. Once you have an approval for the building, when the building is under construction, you require a permit from LASPAC, and they come for stage approval. That's what we're talking about. You may have the approval in terms of the building approval, you have it. And if you do not comply with that approval that has been given, they will also not allow you build it. In fact, you will void that approval that has been granted. Being granted planning permits is not the same as taking action to ensure as the work complies with the building regulation. The planning permits and building regulation and building code, they are not the same. The code helps you to ensure that the building is built to standard. The permit only tells you that you have permission to build this building that you have designed in a particular area. Generally, you will have to have held you have to generally you will have to you are held to building regulations for building works or internal alterations of property, such as and as such you may not require building plan. But now in Lagos State, if you are doing any form of renovation, whether alterations inside your building, you must go and seek for approval because they catch you, they'll shut down the site. Whatever you are doing, if you are doing painting, you are changing your roof, you must go and get approval from Lagos State to allow you. There's what we call renovation permits. They'll give you a renovation permit to permit you to do the work that you're supposed to do in your building. Even if you want to apply, you want to change your paint from red to blue. As much as you are touching the external of the building, you must go and get a permit. Many types of building work you may need to apply for building regulations and planning permits separately, of course. That is a given for most buildings around, especially in Lagos State. I think that should be it. Yes, thank you. That's the last slide. So I'll take our questions now, and let's see how that plays out. So thank you for listening. So let's take our questions now. So questions, please. Hello. Can you hear me?
I can hear you, sir.
Great. Whose hands am I seeing here? Ibukun? Is that Ibukun? Please, your question, please.
Okay, sir. I will just start by clarifying some of the things you mentioned in the class.
Yes, go ahead.
Question about at the beginning, dry riser. I didn't get that clearly.
Okay. That's for firefighting. Dry riser is there are two of them. There's what we call wet riser, which is actually for firefighting is already charged, so you don't have a problem with that. But the dry riser is a provision made. It's like a parallel line to supply water or chemicals for firefighting into the building that is empty. That line is always empty. The connection is made to the outside of the building such that when the fire service come and you don't have water in the building, the fire service connects to that dry riser to enable you to have supply of water or whatever chemicals they want to use to help fighting the fire. That dry riser is connected also to the fire hydrant, the fire hose trace system, in case the provision you have in your compound fails or your facility fails.
Okay, sir. All right, I get that. That's also that's different from the hydrant, right?
Fire hydrant, no, it's different. The fire hydrant line is different. Hydrant is you have of course you know fire hydrant now. It's just there. Is the fire hydrant is actually on the wet one. There's always constant pressured water in the fire hydrant. So if you touch it and you open it up, once there's fire and you trigger the alarm, the firefighting gadget picks up immediately and charges up the hydrant. So that once you release it, you open it up, you release water to quench the fire wherever you want it to go.
But I think it's also basic equipment or equipment that must be available in the facility, right?
I didn't get that. Sorry.
The hydrant too is one of the basic equipment that must also be available.
Yes, please. It must always be available
But I think relative to the use of the facility, right?
I didn't get that. Sorry.
Is it relative to the use of the facility? As in, some places it might require it because of the level of exposure or the number of people that use that facility. I just want to clarify that. Is it according to the number of people that use the facility that makes it?
Well, not necessarily, but as much as you begin to have yes, rather occupancy of the building that is more than normally once you are getting up to 3 floors and above, and you have more than I think about 10 or 11 persons at in terms of accommodation, you must have a hydrant system. But your normal residential bungalow, you don't need a hydrant system. You just need a fire smoke detectors because the casualty is lower. But you need to just make provision in case there's fire, so water. But there's nothing wrong if you want to make provision for fire hydrant system, because really the government is supposed to even make that provision outside your business. So when they just come, they just connect and just allow you use it to fight the fire as it comes.
All right, sir. And I am still in some of the things you mentioned in class. You mentioned something about the roof ventilation.
Yes, please.
Okay, so we talked about the holding buildings where you have that. So when you're mentioning this, I could remember a few buildings I've seen have that. But the buildings that we see these days, they don't have that opening for ventilation in the roof. So, but how can for most of the I was trying to scan through the buildings I manage, that is not there. So what do you think I can do to bring to put that in place?
Well, there's really not so much you can do, except you have permission to make provision for that vent. Somehow, there are some buildings that have it, but it's not in the way that traditional point is. They have the vents positioned somewhere in around just a bit above where you have the roof, where the roof sits. They don't close the edges of the roof completely. They just leave some few gap to allow that air vents out in some buildings, but you need to check. But buildings that don't have it at all, you always have problem with the ceilings on that level.
Okay. I'll do a thorough check just to confirm that. All right. And also talking about setbacks, I just want to clarify that.
Yes,
I know normal buildings are 3 meters at the sides, then front 6 meters. But I didn't get for the
yes.
I think 4.5 sides, but I didn't get the rest.
4.5 at the sides and 9 meters in front. As the building goes higher for high-rise building, is about 6 meters wide and 12 meters in front.
12 meters in front. Okay. All right, sir. Then also this talking about the cost. You're talking about the construction cost is being made by the QS. So, what about the operating cost and the construction schedule? Is it also the QS?
The construction schedule is done by the manager, and the operating cost is actually is a mixed blend between the project manager, the QS, and the facility manager.
Okay. All right, sir. And
remember that the facility is supposed to be part of the project team.
okay, sir.
So
I didn't get
the facility is actually supposed to be
part of the project team. Okay.
because he's the one that will be able to advise very well. Okay, let me take Adamu. Your question.
Good evening, sir.
Good evening, Oga.
Thanks for today's lectures. The part of the question I want to ask has been clarified, but one more thing, where you mentioned setback, building setback from the road. I got lost in that aspect. I didn't get you, sir. You are saying in a commercial property, there's a particular meter from the road. If you can clarify that more, I will appreciate, sir.
Residential, especially in Lagos State, 3 meters on the several side, the left, the right, and the back of the building, and 6 meters in front minimum. For commercial building, commercial activities, buildings that actually go and just any building that goes from 3 floors and above, the minimum on the sides is 4.5 meters, and in front is 9 meters.
That is from the road.
From the road, yeah. No, not from the road, though. From the, there's normally they will make provision for a pathway, a walk back. In fact, the property is not from the road, the property line.
Okay. So then, sir, what is the standard setback from the road, from the access road?
No, not from. They don't take it from the access road. They take it from your fence. Your fence, your property boundary.
Yes, that's what I'm saying. From your property boundary to the main road, what is the actual meter that one's supposed to leave for residential?
By you, that's determined by the government. Once you go and do your plot, they give you your plot. They already determine it. But normally it's between 2.4 meters and 1.8 meters.
Okay, sir. Thank
so
you.
They can make and a little bit of covet on that part.
Right.
ID.
Okay.
Sorry, sir.
Olayemi.
Please, sir, just to come in briefly, still on that point, I just want to clarify, sir. That's from the fence to the walkways, right, on the road, if I get that clearly.
Yes, please.
All right.
Because your walkway on the road is supposed to be minimum around 1.2 meters. Olayemi, let me answer you.
Okay. Thank you for the elaborate lecture. I want to ask, this permission you mentioned towards the end of the class that's needed to be obtained from Lagos State if for buildings within the Lagos State, does include internal renovation too?
You said?
For example, maybe you have I mean, does it include internal renovation? Maybe you have.
Yes. It does.
It does. Okay. So that means we have to go to the what's called the office of the Lagos State Ministry of Works, or what, or where do we get permit?
No. Look, each local government state have.
Hello.
They have the regulatory offices.
Hello.
Where you just go and request, you write a letter requesting for renovation permit.
And they will grant that to you. Does it come with a cost, or?
I hope I'm clear.
Just I hope I'm clear. Yeah, you are clear now. I mean, does it normally come with a cost, or is it normally free?
Yes. It comes with a cost.
Okay. Okay, I will note that and work towards that. And then I also want to ask this deferred liability period you mentioned. You spoke
Yes,
from the perspective of new constructions. Does it include renovations too?
yes, it does include renovations.
Yes,
it does include renovations. The deferred liability period is a standard.
Deferred liability period is a standard.
For all renovation work, I mean, for all civil construction
All
works.
civil, whatever you need to.
Engineering.
Whatever you need to.
Okay. Okay. Thank you, sir.
Yeah, thanks. Let me hear from Aslam. Aslam, are you ready?
Yeah, good evening, sir.
Hi, good evening, sir.
Yeah, you've done justice to the first question. That is the set out for construction. But so sorry, I want to take you back slightly to the last class on foundation. Please, if you want to get the depth of the foundation for all foundation from the ground level below, what is the minimum depth you go for?
Normally, the engineers will design that and let you know. It actually depends on the type of soil that they will let you know. Yes, it's not a one answer to all. The site that you're talking about, the soil, they'll look at the soil type and be able to advise you on the depth of the foundation to go, whether it's strip, raft, or pad or pile foundation.
Okay, for a normal traditional foundation, what is it like?
That's what I'm telling you. Even the traditional one, which is the strip foundation, the soil type is what determines the depth you go.
Okay.
It's not a guesstimate. It's a scientific determination.
Determination. Okay. Okay, thank you.
Yeah. Lucy, please.
Yes, thank you, sir. I just want to clarify something. Under defect liability record, you mentioned that there is a fee that must be paid if a client is satisfied by the work that is being done. So please, what's the fee called again?
I didn't say the fee. I just said that normally there's a 5% retention.
Okay, that's what I wanted to get.
5%. Every payment that is paid to the contractor, 5% is held back.
Okay.
As option. 5% is held for throughout the period of the defect liability period. After the period has been exhausted, that money is paid back. It's paid to the contract.
Okay, thank you.
All right. Muritala.
Good evening.
Good evening.
Yeah, I just want to ask a question. You mentioned something about headroom. So I want to know what headroom is all about and what is it used for in a building?
What headroom?
Headroom, yes, you mentioned headroom during. I said I want to ask what is headroom in a building? Headroom.
Okay, the headroom is the floor to ceiling height. And the standard headroom for any residential space, any building, the standard is 3 meters. I hope that's clear. Hello, Marita.
Yes, clear, sir. Thank you.
Okay.
Yes, I heard you loud and clear. Thank you.
All right. Adamo, do you still have another question because your hand is still up? Okay.
No, sir.
Let's take any other question. I'm not seeing anybody's hand up again. Aslam, do you still want to ask question? I've seen your hand up.
No, no, sir.
Okay.
No, I'm done, sir.
Okay, great. All right. If there are no questions,
hello, sir. Please, can I still clarify something?
Go ahead, Ibuku.
All right, sir. Still on setback. I just want to know. You talked about from the walkway to the fence. What about from the fence to the building? I think there's also
defense to the
minimum
building. I've told you now.
Okay, that's the one you mentioned.
Yes, now.
Okay, before. Okay. Okay, I was thinking what you mentioned was for a walkway to the fence. Okay. I get it now.
All right. Okay. Thank you very much for your time. If there are no questions, please let's not forget to always drop our questions. You can write. If you have anything that is bothering you, I'll address it as it relates to what we have done in the different classes. And I'll always be available to attend to your issues as it comes. Fatima, are you there? I'm not voice again, no. Hello, Fatima.
I'm here, sir.
Okay, I thought you have gone to sleep.
No.
Okay, great.
Yes,
Okay, that's it for today. Thank you very
My hands are up. My hand is up.
Oh, madam. Let me hear you.
All right. I don't really have any much to say. Just to say thank you so very much for this lecture today. Quite revealing. And our desire always is that whoever is getting involved in building should always go and make inquiries and make sure that the available standards are complied with, because in this country, people don't comply with standards. People don't even ask questions. They just start doing things anyhow. My concern is where there is requirement for inspector. I know this is a law, is a regulation, is been set, but where they said about something about the experience, I don't know whether that experience is particularly for the inspector, is irrespective of qualification. Because you have people who have been electricians, in quote, and they've been there for years, and they still want to do things the way they've been doing it, in as much as there are a lot of innovations taking place, things have changed, they don't even train themselves, they still want to maintain the old things. And so you have problems having those kind of people on your building site. So I don't know whether that law puts into consideration the fact that sometimes experience really, when you consider a peculiarity of Nigeria, that experience may not really mean real experience, because some people just want to keep doing things the way they do it. So I'm very concerned about that. Then secondly, I just want to let the class know that this particular building code was actually reviewed. A committee was set up, an advisory committee was reviewed in 2013, June 2013. And when they presented it for approval to the necessary authority for approval, they said that it had already been approved the first time. So what they did was just an update. So they should go ahead and continue to implement as updated. So there was an update for 2013, June 2013. Then thirdly, I just realized there's no assessment after this. Is it that we don't have any assessments, or is the question come?
I'm sure they will send to you.
Okay, they will send that.
Yes, I'm sure they will send that to you.
All right, thank you very much. I really enjoyed the lecture. Thanks.
Yeah, just mention that for the things you mentioned concerning the artisans that have been there doing things the old way. So which state you are presently domesticated in? If you are in Lagos now and they are doing the right thing you're supposed to do, those kind of people will not find place to work in your project sites, because last back will come and they normally will ask for updated license the people that are inspecting the buildings. And once they know that you are meeting up with the minimum requirement, those kind of people cannot even be there. Let me tell you an example. Just recently, I was involved in a particular building, and the consultant recommended that the plumbing pipes, supply pump for the supply pipe for plumbing, it should be galvanized pipes, the old galvanized pipes, and he was defending it. By the time I got to meet with the consultant mechanical engineer, he's an old man anyway. We had to let him know that there is, even if heaven will fall, we will not use those pipes because we know the attendant risks that is associated with that pipe. And we have to make a presentation to the client to let the client know that, and did a document and tell the client that we're going to sign an undertaking that if anything happens to the building, if we use this pipe, that we will not be held responsible. The client had to, of necessity, had to ensure that we do not use the galvanized pipe as was specified consultant, knowing the attending risks that is part that has been put in that pipe will always give. So sometimes some of these things to always beat, and it's very important for you to note, and for you as the supervisors, as the people that will be at the managerial part of the project, it is also you are supposed to also ensure that the people that are working with you, the artisans that are working with you, get themselves updated, because it's you as a leader, you have to lead them in the paths that they need to follow. If you don't lead them well, then they will not be able to follow. If you are not updated with current trends and material usage for construction, that is when the artisan will have a say. But if you are fully updated and you have educated yourself enough to be able to use the right and new materials that are more efficient, deliver the right result, then the artisans will have no choice but to align with what you are saying. Then finally, that of the building code. Madam, you need to ensure that they bring that in out. It is still hidden somewhere. So I know it's an updated one of the 2006 that you said is happened in 2013, but it's not in circulation per se. And
Yeah.
like and that's a problem.
Yeah.
Of what use having a code that is not in circulation doesn't
I
make
don't
any
know.
form of.
I don't know what is happening to them. You know, there's a ministry that is in charge of it. We are only trying to help them to make people use them. So we told them that we're going to break them down into separate codes, specifics, you know. But they have not even made it aware that, okay, this has been reviewed and is available for use, because I believe that with a lot of new ways of doing things, the review would have included some few things inside and people should know about it. But maybe we'll follow up. I had to make a call through to one of them before I could get this information this evening, but I'll follow up with them.
Please, it would be nice to do that, and if you can get it, I don't mind, because I think what I still have, if I check, is the 206, and it's about 400 and something pages. I think 480 pages or thereabouts, and it's a bulky document. Anyway, and I know the changes will not be too much. It will not, it's just an update of what is there, what has been there before. I thank you very much for that info. Do we have any other question?
So the one you have with you, we still like to have it.
I know that you will ask. Why do you want an out? Okay, if
I requested for
I don't know if you have a group WhatsApp. If you have that set up already, I can send it to you guys.
We do. We have.
Hello, sir. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Hello.
I hear you, please.
Okay, good evening, sir. Sorry, it's just something about piping, galvanized, PR, PVC.
Yes.
Can you hear me?
I can hear you.
Now, I have a challenge. There's this serious leakage I've been battling for weeks now. And of course, the whole of that area is tapped. We can't start tracing where in particular is leaking. So I'm of the opinion that I think it was a PVC they used, but recently they introduced the pressure pump, and that's where the leakage came from. So now I'm of the opinion that we should run surface. What will you advise? Because it's actually an open area. Can we run surface, having it pegged to the wall all around?
Okay, Kisle, I'll answer you now. I'll answer you in two ways. One, I'll answer you as an architect. As an architect, I'll tell you, running is a no-no.
Okay.
Because it will affect the aesthetics of the building and it won't look nice. Anyway, but if you don't mind the aesthetics, you can do surface. But the pipe I would advise you to use, I would rather advise you to use a PPR pipe or multi-layer pipe in the
Yeah.
market. Yeah, PPR materials. They'll just give you to give you what you normally a lot of times that once they do PVC and you go and put pressure pump to PVC. If you do not test those pipes under pressure before during installation, and while you use it to go and put pressure pump, the thing will burst because the joints burst under pressure after a while. You're just looking for trouble, and that
All
has
right, sir.
you can do surface and that was not problem.
All right, sir. Thank you very much.
Hello, sir. Hello,
Yes,
sir.
yes, sir.
Sorry to just come in. You just mentioned DPR. Which one is DPR?
This is a DPR, PPR.
PPR. Okay. Thank you.
Yes, sir. Okay, any other question?
Yes, sir. I want to ask.
Okay, let me go.
This fire, let me say sprinklers.
Sprinkler system, yes.
Pipes. Sprinkler system, yes. Yes, sprinkler system pipes. Can it also be PPR, or because I'm looking at the okay. I think PPR too can withstand pressure, but is it ideal to use PPR or to use the normal steel pipes?
Black steel. Well, you actually use PPR pipes. I know. In the UK, they use PPR pipes for some of this firefighting stuff, and it works. But for me, I will always prefer to use the black steel pipes that are regular, because I know that can withstand much pressure, and the jointing parts can be managed properly. So I would prefer that you do the black pipes, fire pipes normally that they are called, and that will just solve it, because there's no demerit for using black pipes anyway.
Okay, I'm also looking at the sizes that PPR pipes come with. The main pipe coming from, let me say, the sprinkler pumps is normally big, maybe like the diameter, maybe like 10 inch or something. 100 m, yeah.
You have
the diameter.
You have
PPR. We have PPR of that size too.
Yes, please.
Okay. When you get to the design stage, you will always. Well, I'm talking about the existing one. Maybe something that could be considered for new buildings.
Yeah, no problem. It can be considered.
Okay.
Yeah, no problem. It can be.
Yes, please. Okay. Any other question?
Yes, sir. One more thing, sir.
Yes, go ahead.
On already existing building, how can one install smoke detectors?
Smoke already existing building. Yes, you can install a surface. And the most important thing on smoke detectors, the fitting itself, is the panel.
Okay, because the reason why I'm asking, we just lost 2 ACs to power surge, and I'm sure if like you said, most times people shut down, they probably forget to turn off the appliances when they are leaving the office. And where our office is located, NEPA is not friendly. I mean, the voltage is not up to 220, it's like 180, 191.
Yeah.
It keeps fluctuating. When you leave the socket, you find that sometimes the socket heats up. When you place your hand on the switch, it's always hot.
Hot, okay.
Now we lost 2 ACs, and then I was like, okay, fine. if we can install, when you mention smoke detector, if we had that in place, I'm sure that would have triggered and create awareness so that people can really run to the and get the stuff sorted out. So now that if we install the surface, what do we do to the panel? How are we going to
The
mount
panel
it?
will not be in space now. The panel will be somewhere, either in your control room or in the security post. Normally your panel goes to the control room and the repeater panel goes to the security post, or somewhere that you will always have somebody every time, so that when the thing triggers, once it comes up, somebody will be able to see it and then ensure that adequate action is taken. That's one. Then two, that problem that you have, if you ask me to advise you on how to manage that, I will advise that you get a central storage protective system for your whole office. Comes directly from the distribution board. It will just place it immediately before the distribution board. All the current that is coming from the external goes into the central surge protection or the stabilizing unit, the automatic voltage regulator. It is very big, depending on the wattage or the voltage you want. It will be able to protect and clean the current that is going into your building, so you don't have that problem reoccurring again due to that level of fluctuation going into your appliance.
Okay, sir. The central surge unit.
Central surge protection
unit.
Yes, or the automatic voltage regulator.
That's the ABS.
Yes.
Okay, all right. Thank you very much, sir. Any idea of the cost?
I don't know. These people, you want to go with all of it? Go to the market and go and find
out.
The
reason why I'm asking is
get an electrician. Oh, wait. So hold on. Go and get an electrician to check. To give you the rating first before you go and look for the cost.
Okay, sir. All right. Thank you very much.
All right, sir. Okay. Any other question?
Yeah, sorry to still comment, sir. Still on what my colleague just mentioned now, from a little experience I had in the past managing one facility, I also will advise that the ratings of the cabling that were used for the connection be checked. If it is not adequate, it might likely bring that kind of heat that you're experiencing from the line. If, for example, now you are having maybe 2.5 mm cable, and then you're having like 3 ACs or so connected to the same line, tapping from the same line from different sources, most likely, and then the two of them are, all of them are on at the same time, may likely be like an overload on that cable, which will bring about the heat in the cabling. So it needs to also check that the cablings are also adequate for the connections.
That's true.
Then the question I also want to ask, for the soil test, is it applicable for every type of building, or only for specific type of building?
Okay,
maybe for example, now you want to build a bungalow.
It's applicable for all type of building. If you want to build a bungalow.
So depending on the loading, is it applicable? Okay, that's what I wanted to ask. If it is applicable for that, we must do soil tests for every kind of soil.
If you do the soil test, it will help you to be able to determine what level of load is coming on the soil. whether it's a bungalow or it's a story building or it's a skyscraper. The important thing is you know the profile of the soil. It helps you in a lot of things. If you do it, it will also help you if you want to drill a borehole. It will also let you know the level of that you probably will go for the borehole to get clean water. Those things, once you do it, it has a ripple effect. You just save yourself a lot of headache, and then you'll be better positioned to the building that is the standard, and you won't have any problem in the future. I don't know if that's all for the day. If that's it, I want to call it a day. Thank you very much for attending class today, and I hope you enjoyed yourself. I hope you gained one or two things. Like I always say, with these few points of mine, I hope I've not been able to confuse you. Thank you very much for coming. God bless you.
Thank you, sir.
Yes, sir.
Thank you, sir.
Bye, sir.
Yes, sir.
Thank you, sir.
You're welcome.
Thank you. Thank you, sir.
Thank you very much, sir.
You're welcome.